On today's episode, we're joined by an artist and a curator as we bridge the gap between art and entrepreneurship. Tune in to learn how unexpected circumstances can lead to creative opportunities. This is the Startup Junkies podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in, however and wherever you're tuning in from. I am your solo host today, only one, Daniel Koonce, and I'm joined here today by two guests. They're both artists, they're both entrepreneurs, and they're both my new friends. First, we have Susan Edgmon, and then we have Allen Paulose. Susan, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. And Allen, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling great. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon, so I bet the last thing you want to do is be locked up indoors. So I appreciate you guys coming out and agreeing to do this. So the way we like to start things off, we'll start with you, Susan. Tell us a little bit about what you do and your journey, how you got to that point.
Okay. I'm a multitasker. I do lots of different things, but it's all centralized around art, centralized around creative processes, creative items. So I'm one of the lucky people that gets to do something they love every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And also I'm very lucky because everything is on my property. I have a studio at my house. I have a frame shop, and then I also have a cabinet shop.
Yeah.
And all of those are to do with my business. And it's kind of a multifaceted business. It's not all just one thing. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of different things. Kind of roundabout way that I got to the art. I have not been an artist all my life. I actually have been mostly a business owner. And in 1989, I had a car wreck with a head injury, and it kind of changed my whole trajectory for my life. So I say I paint by grace. Mm-hmm. It took about 4 years to get better, and better meant we ended up at Mayo Clinic, and they said, "What is your goal?" And I said, "My goal is to drive again," because I hadn't been able to drive. And then I said, "If I can drive, I'm going to go to college," because I wanted to go younger, and I didn't. I got married, and life interfered, and
life happened.
Right, life happened, and I didn't. So as I got better, I signed up to the community college. And one of the things that I had was memory loss. So I would go to the classes and I would tape the classes, and then I'd play the videos as I drove back and forth or when I got home. I was doing great in school. And my mom called me and she said, she was so excited, and she said, "I signed us up for an art class." I said, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm doing this school thing." I said, "I can't do it." And she said, kind of quietly, she said, "I paid $60 and I can't get it back."
Non-refundable.
Right. And she was on Social Security. Mm-hmm. And that was, so for her, that was a big investment. Yeah. So I said, "Okay, well, tell me more about it." And it was at the Art Center in Springdale. So those little classes can change people's lives.
Yeah.
So we went to a watercolor class for 6 weeks. And the first day that we went, he only let us paint with brown. Yeah. And I went, "Oh, I don't know. This is not that much fun." The next week, we got to use color. Mm-hmm. So we did a sunset with an oak tree. I put an oak tree in mine. And he came around and he goes, "How many years have you been painting?" I said, "This is my second painting." And he looked at it and he goes, "Oh, well, you probably should have been painting a long time," because he said that was pretty good. So I took the class for the 6 weeks, and I didn't know what I was going to be. That's why I was back in college, because I couldn't do what I used to do. And so I said, well, there's an answer out there somewhere. So I'll go to school and then I'll figure it out. So I continued the classes, and I actually even started taking a couple art classes. And that was in March of 96. So I signed up. I did the 6-week class at the Art Center. And then I signed up for some college art classes. And I went in, and at the beginning of that, the start of that class, it was in a beginner's class. And the teacher, she said, "Oh, you should have why did you sign up in the beginners? You should have you should have signed up in the advanced class." And I said, "No, this is only about my 12th painting." So she talked me into just switching right over, because I wasn't doing it for hours. I was old enough to get cheaper classes. Yeah. So anyway, I did that semester of class. And then I was, going ahead and taking real classes besides the art classes at that time. Anyway, they had just built an area that was going to have be able to hang paintings. So after we had, I don't know, a month maybe of the classes, then they were going to hang a little show. And so they hung some of my paintings. And the next day she called me and she said, "Do you want to sell your paintings?" I said, "I don't know. I hadn't even thought about selling them. I was just having a lot of fun with it." Mm-hmm. Bob Burns was the president of the college, and he wanted to know if I would sell this rose that I had painted. And I said, "Well, yeah, maybe I would sell it, but I don't have any idea what to charge." And she said, "Well, think of a couple prices. One, if you sell it for enough, you pay for some more supplies. You get, buy some more supplies. Mm. Or just think of what you want that you wouldn't mind parting with it." So anyway, I said $60, which seemed like a lot to me. Yeah. And well, he snapped it right up. Yeah. And I thought, well, maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe I should have charged more than that. But anyway, just them hanging it in there, I had people wanting to buy it, which I didn't expect. And I really didn't, to begin with, I didn't think about selling them. I was doing it just for the joy of it. Yeah. And I actually painted every day for several years, every day. So anyway, they hung the paintings there. And then after the classes, I went ahead and taken the college classes with it. And I took some other art classes there. And then I got an opportunity to do an art show, a solo art show at Siloam Springs in their, they had a little art center. Mm-hmm. And she had seen some of my paintings, I think at the college, but I'm not positive. But she'd called me and said, we have a competitive art show that you can enter. And, they give some prizes and a little bit of prize money and stuff. So I entered some in that. And there was artists that I was competing against, which I didn't know any of them at the time. They were teachers, college art teachers. Yeah. So when they did the awards thing, I won one of the big awards. And I was really shocked, because I had not, it was like within the first 25 or 30 paintings is what I'd put in that show. Anyway, extremely lucky. And then the judge, after the thing, he said, "Come and talk to me." And he said, "They told me you're a new artist." And I said, "I really am." And he said, "Why haven't you been painting all your life?" And I said, "I've done creative stuff. I did sculpture. And I did, I didn't paint. Mm-hmm. I did things that you use paint and you get used to the colors and, that thing. Because I did ceramic and plaster craft and I did sculptures and we made molds of them and then we reproduced them. So I knew how to mix colors, but I just never tried the, 3D on a piece of paper. Yeah. And so it was just a whole new experience for me. But then in turn, she just wanted to know if I would do a solo show. And I said, "Well, I don't think I have enough paintings for a solo show because I've just started." So we set the date for a year out for me to do a solo exhibit there. So that gave me a year to paint, and I painted. Yeah. Let me tell you, I painted. I painted every day, and I painted all kinds of different subjects and I did watercolor, I did oil, I did acrylic. So I did different mediums because I didn't even know what medium I was going to love. I ended up loving them all.
Loved them all.
I paint them all and I teach them all. And even I pen and ink and pastel. So I ended up just loving it all. But because she took the chance, on a brand new artist and did this solo show, they put stuff in the paper and they put pictures of my paintings in the paper. And so then I had a couple of restaurants call me and say, can we hang some of your art? And I thought, well, yeah, I'll do that. And then that led to a company in Tulsa contacted me to see if I would do commissions for them. So I did that for a few years, which was fun. And they used it on products. They used it on like mugs and placemats and spiritual images, framed things. So then I decided I just wanted to paint what I wanted to paint.
Yeah.
When you work for them, and I never would turn loose of my copyright on any of it. So I would just lease use of it. So I did that for a few years, but that was one of the things that came just because one lady liked my work, and the same with Carol hanging them. Carol Cooper was my art teacher there at the college. Her hanging them and Bob Burns buying from me because I didn't even think that I could make it into a business at that point.
Yeah.
But after a few more people wanted to buy them, and this other company said, well, would you do art for us? I thought, oh, well, okay, maybe I can do this, So I did that for a while. But you have to kind of take advantage of every opportunity because you don't know what that's going to lead to. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so I learned right away, even though I didn't have a goal of hanging in restaurants, but it actually helped me get to the next thing. Mm-hmm. And then also by having those, the art show, there was a group of ladies in Gravette that came to the art show and they said, well, would you teach? I said, I can't teach. I don't know enough. I'm trying to learn, I can't teach. And about the same time, I took a workshop from a teacher from Tulsa. And so she heard me talking to one of my friends about these ladies, wanting me to teach. And so at the end of the workshop, she came up to me and she said, why don't you teach? You could teach. And I said, well, I don't know enough. What if they ask me something I don't know? She said, you have a week to get the answer. Mm-hmm. So between now and the next time they come,
put you on the spot.
Right. Mm-hmm. You figure out the answer. And she said, you instinctively know enough to teach now.
Yeah. And
because she said, I never would have thought you were a new painter either. She said, I figured you painted your whole life. So I paint by the grace of God. Mm-hmm. I was a workaholic before, and I became a paintaholic. But, because of the car wreck, I had to stop and slow down and smell the roses. And I had never done that before.
And paint the roses.
Right. That's right. I had never sat and looked out my window and watched a leaf open on a tree. Mm-hmm. And I had to do that because I was too sick to do things that I wanted to do. So it was like God had a different plan for me than I had for me. Mm-hmm. So you have to be open to what's out there. You never know when you take a step, where that step is going to take you. Mm. And I think I even told Allen this. I said, you got to be fearless because no matter what you do, whether it turns out good or it turns out bad, you learn something.
Yeah.
And what you learn is yours from now on. No one can ever take that from you. Mm. So I said, when I did things that didn't turn out how I thought, then I backed up and I said, okay, what did I learn? Because I don't want to regret my time. Mm-hmm. I don't want to look back and say, I should have, I wished I had it and all that, because I want to take everything, and especially because of that car wreck, I think it kind of changed. I realized I wasn't invincible, right. That I only do have a limited time here.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do with that time is up to you.
Yeah.
I could have went back and became a workaholic, but I knew that wasn't what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I knew that I was supposed to do the art. So those little ladies talked me into teaching. So then I've been teaching a class once a week all these years.
Yeah.
That
right there is an incredible story. One of the best I've ever heard. Allen, good luck following that up. So we'll now turn it over to you. Yeah. What is it that you do? And tell us a little bit how you got there.
But I'll just kind of back up on one thing that she said was like, after my first failure in the arts world, that was the first lesson Susan taught me, was that it's okay, but just learn whatever you've done and whatever you have experienced, that learning will stick with you throughout your life. So take that forward with you into your next journey and things like that. So anyway, so a little bit about me. My name is Allen Paulose, and I started out being an engineer. I worked in renewable energy, and I worked in, I worked in consulting, analytics consulting. But I've always wondered, I always struggled, what is my purpose? And, what is my passion? I keep hearing all these words about, people actually loving what they do and, they're enjoying, their craft and things like that. So I always kind of struggled to find that. I couldn't connect the dots looking forward, but I always, the pandemic, I got laid off from my work, and that again, forced me to kind of take a step back and reevaluate, what's important to me and what's my passion, things like that. It's always kind of a little bit entrepreneurial. I was kind of interested in startups and things like that. The pandemic kind of forced me to kind of think that, we were all stuck indoors.
Yeah.
A lot of time to think. And I realized, all these years I've been trying to help my dad. My dad is also an art teacher, Susan, and he taught in schools in India and the Maldives Islands. And but I always felt that he didn't get the recognition that he deserved. And he was very talented. I couldn't get him into a gallery for the longest time, almost a decade before I got to Bentonville. And when I came to Bentonville and I saw Crystal Bridges, I was like, Dad, you got to move here. This place is popping. It's just it's going to be a great place for artists. This was in 2019, and I think that's when the art market first started, or maybe I think that's when it started. 2019 or 2020, and I started showing my dad's art at the art market, and then I met Matt Coburn, and through Matt Coburn, I met Susan Edgmon. Helped Matt with the gallery down the square. I learned a lot from Matt and all the artists that I worked with that day in the gallery at Art on the Square. And it was just incredible, all these wise people. And I'm just getting to soak in all this years of wisdom. And it was this was exactly what I wanted to do. It was so I was at least spending 12 hours a day at the gallery, or as much as I could, try to learn from these people. And I loved working with all these artists there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just every artist is a universe in themselves. It just kind of fascinated me, the way Susan paints her flowers. It's so realistic. It's so, life, the kind of dedication, time, and effort it takes to kind of capture that was always fascinated me. And each artist is very different, and there's a reason and why they focus on it. So all these stories kind of fascinated me, and trying to get to know these artists and what's their essence, what's their message, what are they trying to tell to the world. So that's what I was trying to capture. I was just curious about all that. And then after 2021, I started, actually I met Chandler Abbott from WeWork Labs. We were just kind of taking pictures of the Bentonville Water Tower for my dad to paint. And then we went up. They were actually at the Massey building before they moved to Fifth Street building and before they left. But I asked him, hey, can I just take pictures? Because, just go up there. It's a better view of the water tower. And my dad painted water towers, and it sold a lot of, a lot of people loved the Bentonville Water Tower, and they wanted to buy it. So that was one of his best-selling paintings, the Bentonville Water Tower. So I always try to capture better pictures from, where he could paint and things like that. So that led to my first curatorial opportunity. And I just discovered, wow, I actually like curating exhibitions. And then, I started working with different artists like, Ricky Hendricks, Stephen Morgan, Kenya Christian, Darnay Willis, unfortunately passed away recently. But all these artists that I worked with taught me something important, what art means to them, and I have all these kind of sort of collective sort of wisdom that they've shared with me that I treasure. And that I take each of them to another event, like Susan was telling, like each one is sort of a serendipitous next event sort of things. Like one event would lead to another. I would meet someone at that exhibition that would lead me, I didn't know you were like a playwright. I met a playwright at one of my exhibitions, and that led to some work that I did with him later on. It's a couple of years later, things like that. So all these, so eventually I figured out I enjoyed curating. So I actually got Arkansas's first curatorial license tag. So now my license tag is curator.
Well, congratulations.
So that's where I am right now. So I'm an aspiring curator. I still consider myself an aspiring curator because I'm still learning. I got my first sort of official learning from Interform. They did Assembly, the first art and fashion biennial before in 2023. That gave me like a formal learning of what it was, and that led to an exhibition where I curated. So it's like one of the exhibitions for this large multi venue exhibition or biennial. It was a biennial actually. So for that exhibition, I curated art from artists from 5 different countries and 10 different ethnicities, and it was trying to create a microcosm of what I felt was America. We should, we all have all our differences, but we can still come together. And like it or not, we're in the same room, right? Yeah. And we can talk about, unless we talk about our differences, we get to understand each other better. That was my concept of the exhibition, togetherness and belonging and things like that. So that was my first big exhibition. So, each exhibition led me figure out I actually enjoy doing this, even if I don't get paid or, nothing happens, I just love working with artists and enjoy curating exhibitions. Mostly around topics like, something that social causes that I care about deeply, or if I find an artist whose story I resonate with very deeply, those are the kind of stories I'd like to share. Eventually, I'm just a storyteller, I feel, and I like to focus on the stories of artists that have mostly been underrecognized or neglected over a long period of time. And that reminds me of my dad, artists like him who very talented, very capable, but their stories aren't being heard. So that's where I'd like to be that bridge between the artist and the market and the community, so that I'd like to, amplify their voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys are making my job really easy. You're answering all the questions I had for you guys without me having to ask them. No, keep going, seriously.
Are you an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get plugged into the ecosystem? We host a ton of events designed for education, inspiration, and collaboration, from weekly meetups to quarterly events like pitch competitions and annual events like our marquee event, the Startup Crawl, which is the largest startup party in Arkansas. Check out our event page on our website, sign up, and we'll see you there.
One question I do need to ask you guys is some of our listeners, they might be thinking, you got artists, you got entrepreneurs, they're 2 different things. That's not necessarily the case. So a term we use behind the scenes to kind of bridge that gap is creative entrepreneurs, which I consider both you guys to be creative entrepreneurs. Can either one of you guys define creative entrepreneurship and kind of how it's influenced your journeys?
I was a business person first before I really got immersed in the art. So I think I already thought in terms of business. And I did work at Walmart for about 4 years. And I got to sit in on Saturday morning meetings, which Sam would get up and talk. And someone asked him one time, Sam Walton, yeah, and asked him how he decided to do Walmart. And he said, the way to have a successful business is find a need and fill it. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. That stuck in my head, like, okay, I mean, that's too simple, but it's not. The way to have a successful business is find a need and fill it.
That was your second lesson to me, by the way. So.
Yeah. So when I was doing the art, when I started doing it, first, I didn't think about it being my full-time business. I was going to do it for the joy of it. But I was so extremely lucky that people were receptive to my art and wanted to buy it. Mm-hmm. So then I got to thinking, okay, well, maybe there is a way to make.
There's a need.
There's a need here. There's a way to make money in this. Then, as I did more art, well, then you have to get it framed. Mm-hmm. So after I had a few professionally framed, I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to frame.
Yeah.
So that's how the framing business came. And then I was teaching, and the students need theirs framed. I knew a lot of artists, and I started framing for artists. So it was, you find a need and you fill it. So I knew that I couldn't make enough money just selling the paintings, mm-hmm. that I had to do more than that. So I combined it with teaching the classes and selling supplies, doing the picture framing. And then I worked my way into, I said something about a cabinet shop. Mm-hmm. So I have a real cabinet shop, woodworking cabinet shop on my property. And that came about because we were traveling. We were going to travel with artists. I had students kept saying, we'd like to take trips. Can we, So I said, okay, well, I can set trips up. So we decided to go to France for 3 weeks. And we'd all got together and made a list of all the things we wanted to do that we could while we were there. And we were going to paint while we were there. So everybody was bringing in all this different equipment. We could not come up with anything that we could buy that was compact enough that we could, actually travel with it and have enough supplies to paint for a month. Mm-hmm. So after one of the meetings, I told the girls, I said, I can come up with something better than this.
There's a need.
There's a need.
There's a need.
Yeah. So I kind of looked at what everybody had and I said, I can design something way better than this. So 2 weeks later, I had the design for what we call the Edgmon easel box. And it's a travel box that opens up big, but folds up and can go in a backpack. And it mounts on a camera tripod. So that's how I started making the wood things, is because we needed, and then we needed 12 of them mm-hmm. within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So the first one I made, there was a couple little things I had to tweak on. I still have that one, tweak on it. And then I made enough and we traveled with them and they really worked. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So then I started looking what was out there to see what kind of patents were out there. There was nothing like mine. And I had went to an international pastel convention in Albuquerque. And they had some classes that were hands-on, so you set your stuff up. Well, everybody was just flocking around. Where'd you get that? I've never seen that before. So I said, okay, maybe I need to, really follow up. So I did get a patent on it, and we've made them for several years, and we sell them online.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing. The same simple concept is find a need and fill it.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. Yeah, it's hard, I think, for just about any artist to just make it on one thing or one gallery. Mm-hmm. You've got to be open to see what's out there.
Yeah.
And take advantage of those. And Allen's been really good to include me when he's had exhibits and gallery space. And so, I couldn't be where I'm at or be doing what I did if people didn't support me. And that's like the community. People would see my work and they call, can I bring my friend out? I teach the classes and they tell people. And the classes, to me, because I don't charge much, but they're like my giving back. Mm-hmm. because I feel so blessed that I'm able to do what I do. So they're like a real joy. And it for everybody that comes out there, the world goes away for that day. Mm-hmm. No matter what we have at home, they have at home. For that day, everybody comes out there. We're all collectively there because we want to be there.
Yeah.
So it's a really good time for all of us. So, I think I'm extremely lucky that I get to do everything I like to do is on my place.
Yeah.
So
that's so awesome. Yeah, I consider you very lucky as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Allen, to kick it to you, what do you kind of define as creative entrepreneurship? And going from what she said, what need did you see and how did you fill it?
Well, I was just pondering that, I think all entrepreneurs have to be creative, in some way. They actually are the ones who, and, they got to get creative about solving a particular problem in a way that nobody has solved it before. And I think that's what entrepreneurship, at least for me, and then providing value in a way that the market can receive it, right? So, to me, creative entrepreneurship, I don't have a definition for it, but I just like being creative, and I saw that there's a need in the market. For me, the need was personal. I was trying to help my dad, and then I saw that there was other artists like him that were kind of struggling with the same need. And then I was like, okay, there's a gap, there's a need there. How can I fill it? And I've been experimenting constantly to kind of see like how best I can fill it. I haven't figured out the perfect way yet, but all those experiments, like Susan said, I've learned something or the other from those experiments. So low cost, and my mantra has been low cost experimentation. So, because if I can experiment at a small cost, small scale, and then if it provides some value, and then I can scale that value. So as a creative entrepreneur, or what I think is creative entrepreneurship is finding those small places where you can help in a way, and then just kind of finding a creative way to help. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know a definition.
It seems like the need that you filled is, the artist scenario needed a curator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say something too. Allen had a gallery in downtown Springdale for a year. Mm-hmm. He involved the community in that gallery like I have never seen a gallery before. Mm-hmm. He had dinners there. He had ballet there. He had mental health conferences there. So he did way more than I have ever seen any other gallery do, as far as really bringing all types of different people in to his place and then let them be surrounded by art.
Yeah.
So I think he does have a really valuable way for the presentation. And I told him, I said, even though he didn't get to keep the gallery for on and on and on, he learned a lot and he made so many connections. Those connections will come back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. She's touched on the community several times. I kind of want to hear your side of it. What was your inspiration to reach out to the community and get all different walks of life involved?
Well, one was the location itself. I thought Springdale, at the time, it was not a very high foot traffic location and things like that. And then for me, I've always wanted to have sort of a space where everyone feels like they belong and, everybody's welcome and things like that. I've been to some places where I felt like I, was not welcome. So, and I wanted to create a space, an artistic, creative space where everybody can feel like they're welcome. It's not like an elite, place where nobody can enjoy art or something like that. So my thinking was like, okay, how do I welcome everybody?
Yeah.
People from all walks of life, they still can enjoy art. There's this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and people on the bottom are still always struggling, so they don't have time to kind of enjoy the pinnacle of human efforts, which I feel is creativity and art. And so I was trying to leapfrog that, for these masses. So I was like, okay, how do I engage all these different kinds of people? So every artist that I worked with, and they had a story to tell. There was kind of people that related to that particular story. So I would always try to create events around a particular artist, sort of like team, and I would try to reach out to the community. Hey, we're celebrating this artist around this particular theme for this particular like it could be Mental Health Awareness Month or something like that. So there's an artist that does work around mental health. So how do we celebrate that? We have panel discussions and things like that. So we bring all these people together that are interested in certain things. Not everybody would be interested in every artist's work, but I find those people that are interested and bring them together for a conversation. And hopefully through those conversations, they would get to know the artist more and connect with the artist better. And then hopefully my goal is to help the artist, help sell art. And then if the customer or the community feels that much drawn to a particular art, they will buy it. So I was trying to eventually, I guess I was trying to sell art for my artists. And then I just found a different way of doing that. It's not just like hardcore car salesman kind of thing. It's just
it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, this is more like empathetic, experiential way to connect with art, and that's what I was trying to do. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
It answered it perfectly. And I'm going to say it again. You guys have answered my questions without me even having to ask. So thank you again for making it easy on my end. One question I do want to ask, because I told you I'd ask it. I'll ask you both individually. Susan, in 30 seconds or less, how can somebody turn their passion into a career?
Find a need and fill it.
Find a need and fill it.
Yes, find
Perfect.
a need and fill it. It's, I said it's a simple sentence, but it's a profound idea. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's it. Find a need and fill it. And try to find something you love.
Yeah.
We only have so many days here. We might as well love them.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it's simple. Just find a need and fill it, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Allen, I'll ask you the exact same question and I'll rephrase it. In 30 seconds or less, tell us how you can turn a passion into a career.
For me, it's been more about like finding that passion, So if you haven't, and for my answer would be for those who haven't found their passion yet, are still trying to figure it out, keep experimenting. Be open to life, connect with people from all different walks of life, and just kind of explore life and eventually lead to your passion. And then if you can find a mentor like, wonderful mentor like Susan Edgmon, and, follow the great people that have done something that you eventually find out what you're passionate about and connect with them. Mm-hmm. Get to know their story, what inspired them, once you find your passion, find people who have done those things at the greatest level and connect with them and learn their stories. And, hopefully that'll lead you to your path. So that's more than 30 seconds, but that's my...
I think it was 32, 33 maybe, but we'll let it slide this time. Well, the way we kind of like to land planes on this episode, I'll start with you, Susan. If you had a time machine, you can go back in time, tell younger Susan, it could be entrepreneurial, it could be artist, it could be personable. If you can give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I told you I was going to say buy Walmart stock because I did work at Walmart when they had stock at $10 a share, and I bought some, but not enough. But the real thing is take time for your children. I have one son, and someone asked me what was the greatest thing I created, and I said, with the help of God, it's my son. Mm-hmm. And then I have two grandchildren who are 18 and 21, Haley and Jacob. So that's my answer, my son.
Yeah, that's a great answer right there. And Allen, if you had to tell a younger Allen a piece of advice, what would it be?
To be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. I've been beating up myself a lot, for my failures, mistakes, and things like that. And I think I'd like to say it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. And there's going to be times where things are not going to be okay, and you got to be okay with that. There's sometimes, but you still you'll figure your way out through it, but don't beat yourself out. But don't beat yourself up too much while things are not going well.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to tell to my younger self.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, if any of our audience listeners, they want to learn more about you, Susan, or they want to learn more about you, Allen, where should they go?
I'm not great on social media, but I do have a little Facebook thing. And then I do have a website, and there's a little information on there and some more of the products and more of the painting.
Cool. We'll make sure to tag those at the bottom in the description.
Edgmondart.com.
And you can call me.
It's edgmondart.com.
Uh-huh.
All right, edgmondart.com. Check it out. We'll make sure it's in the show notes. And then Allen, for you?
Mostly on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or at art.decentral. So it's art.decentrale. So that's where we are.
Cool.
And artdecentral.org. So
yeah, we'll make sure to add all the socials, all the websites down in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for coming out and speaking with me on this Friday afternoon. We appreciate it. This is some of the best conversations I've had ever, I think. So, yeah, high praise. So we appreciate you guys coming out. We really do.
Well,
and then just a reminder to all of our audience listeners, follow the Startup Junkies podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. We will see you later. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.